My wife and I just had a baby recently. I'd say there's no greater joy than witnessing the birth of your child. Remember like it was yesterday, we started heading to the hospital, my wife's water breaks in the car. And she starts screaming, "We're never gonna make it! We're never gonna make it!" Finally, I turn to her and I say, "Honey, then drive faster."
Oh, very nice. That was a clip from comedian Jeff Dwoskin, who is joining us now, alongside comedians Duke and Jason Fylan-Mares. Thank you all for being here tonight.
Thank you for having us.
Great to be here.
It's exciting to have this conversation. So Detroit is known for so many things. You got your motors, your music, pizza, I guess. There's a few things. Comedy is not the first thing that comes to mind for a lot of people when you're talking about Detroit. Jeff, I'll start with you since we just started with your clip there. Do you think that Detroit gets the comedy credit it should?
No, but it is a destination for comedy. When you think of like a lot of the other cities that have very specific things like Hamilton, where you can go to New York and see a play because they have residencies.
Yeah.
In Detroit, the places that are of residency are the comedy clubs. They're the mainstays where you can always go and get a good laugh.
Yeah, so. And what's your take on the comedic scene in Detroit? How long have you been a part of it?
Well, around 5 years,
okay.
So I'm relatively a little newer at it, but I think that just it's a renaissance time for comedy in general.
Yeah.
I think people coming out of isolation and the pandemic are looking to laugh. You know, our world is so serious that if you can just get away for 90 minutes and have a few laughs and forget about your troubles, people are seeking that out. And right now, every show in town is a full house.
Yeah.
It's a really exciting time.
That's good to hear. Jason, I hear you agreeing a lot. You said it's beautiful. You have a similar experience.
Absolutely. You obviously have your main comedy clubs, Mark Ridley's Comedy Castle, One Night Stands, and Detroit House of Comedy. But what I don't know that everybody knows is we also have friends that do shows, they produce shows in Detroit and the surrounding areas, and those shows are at the same level of these comedy club shows. So we really encourage people to go out and seek these shows out. And you can follow those friends on social media, and we find out about it and we share that information. But so it's definitely the clubs, but it's also kind of the on the ground level, the people doing it, the comedians putting their own shows together. It's beautiful. Right.
How would you describe the club scene for fans out there, for people who like to go see comedy, or maybe people who haven't had that experience, actually going to a club? It's a different thing than, you know, a major arena show, right?
Sure, it's intimate. The comedians are accessible in terms of, oftentimes you can meet them afterwards and talk to them, which is always really cool to have your heroes be that accessible. Something I've always loved about comedy. But also the comedic environment itself, you're usually sitting pretty close. And when the laughter starts, it becomes contagious and goes throughout the whole crowd. And that is, as Ann mentioned, something we didn't have during the pandemic. I think people kind of forgot about how beautiful it is to experience that as a community together as people. It's great.
Yeah.
It's nothing like it.
Every city has its own culture, its own sort of flavor. Jeff, how does that play into the comedy that you would experience here in Detroit?
I think you get a wide range of comedy. I think everybody who is into any specific kind, you can find it. I mean, that's the beauty of it. Every comedian playing at any club is different than the comedian playing at the other club. It's kind of like music, you know, whatever your genre is, you can find it.
Yeah. I'd love to know, I don't know, is it an appropriate thing to ask a comedian, what's your genre? How would you describe your comedy?
Well, I think we all have what we call our persona, right? That's your character on stage. For me, you know, I'm that middle-aged woman who's kind of struggling through aging and, you know, a little bit resentful about it maybe, but also like loving my life, right? And I talk a lot about generational differences, you know, being I don't want to say which generation I am exactly, but you know, the way we operate in the world is so different. And so I think that luckily for me, a large portion of the audience in comedy venues is women, right? And a lot of middle-aged women. So I find that a lot of people in the audience relate to the material I'm talking about. Quite often at the end of the show, somebody will come up to me and say, you know, I had that same experience taking my dad to the doctor's office, or I know all about those body shapers that you're talking about, right? So that's rewarding when you can touch a nerve with someone and they feel they can relate to you.
Yeah,
right?
they see themselves in your set.
Exactly.
Very nice.
So that's my goal. I want the audience to be rooting for me.
For sure.
So
I would love to hear more about all of you so we can really introduce our viewers. So Jason, describe your genre, if you will.
I came to comedy after a very, very debilitating case of depression. So that's what led me kind of back to life. So at first I didn't want to do jokes about depression because I thought, who's going to laugh about that? But then I started doing them. And what I started noticing is similar to what Ann said. I looked out in the audience, and it's not that we're laughing at depression, we're laughing at the silliness of it when we experience it ourselves. So I'd look out and I'd not only see people laughing, but they'd be sitting with somebody else and elbowing like, oh, that's you, remember when you were like that? Yeah. So that's extremely rewarding. I also like to talk about my heritage growing up. My mother's Mexican and Cuban, my dad's from England, so those kind of cultural differences are always a lot of fun. I think people can relate to that. So I try to avoid sort of like the big hot button issues. I think probably people get tired of hearing those things no matter what side of the fence they're on, and they like to hear things that they can relate to.
Sure.
Yeah.
Jeff, what do you like to talk about up on that stage?
You know, I used to be very broad and talk about anything that I just thought was funny, and then I one time got some great advice from a comedian, Mary Ellen Hooper, and I ended up focusing in on kind of like the frustrated father. Yeah. And so, and then kind of just really kind of talking about, like you saw in the clip, having a baby or going to Disney World and all the things that people experience, but kind of just in a fun way. I don't want to say being honest about it, but you know what I mean, like kind of what everyone wants to laugh at about those things. It ended up being that like I was a little older than some of the comedians, the other comedians, so they had always, I was always their mom's favorite.
Oh, sure. I get that too. Yeah. My mom loves you.
Yeah,
that's a big compliment, though.
Yeah,
that is.
It is.
Yeah.
So that's where I kind of focus, and I think it helps when you're writing comedy to have kind of a focus on what you want to talk about or what you represent, and it helps you kind of hone that material.
Absolutely. Right. All right, now you mentioned you don't like to wade into hot button issues, but we're going to do that a little bit because when we come back, we will have more with Ann, Jason, and Jeff, including a conversation on cancel culture and its impact on comedy. Stay with us.
CBS News Detroit, on your block, around the clock in Macomb County. Hi, we're CBS News Detroit. But we don't just cover the news here. We're also here, and everywhere in between. You know, the places you live, work, and play in Southeast Michigan. We're talking less of this, and more of the stories that actually matter to you.
CBS News Detroit, on your block, around the clock.
That's right. Local news just found a home in your neighborhood. We're CBS News Detroit. Live, streaming, and on demand. Nice to meet you. CBS News Detroit. On your block, around the clock in Wayne County. CBS News Detroit, on your block, around the clock in Monroe County.
CBS News Detroit, the stories you care about.
Live, streaming, and on demand. We're on your block, around the clock.
Southeast Michigan news whenever you want it.
We live here. We work here.
From North Branch to Southgate.
East Point to Westland.
Wherever you live, we're here for you.
Making a difference in your neighborhood.
CBS News Detroit. Live, streaming, and on demand. Building a better newscast, one story at a time.
CBS News Detroit, on your block, around the clock in Oakland County. It's here, the new CBS News Detroit.
Covering every corner of our community.
With experienced journalists, uncovering the stories that truly matter to you.
Making a difference in your neighborhood.
And weather experts, always looking ahead to prepare you for what's next. Live, streaming, and on demand. with more hours of local news coming soon.
Southeast Michigan news whenever you want it, right here on CBS News Detroit.
Weekdays at 5, 6, and 11, and streaming live.
Welcome back. Over the last several years, cancel culture has become a household term. We're going to hit you with some research now. According to a Pew Research survey conducted in 2020, 44% of Americans said they have heard a fair amount about the phrase, but familiarity varies with age. 64% of adults under 30 say they have heard a great deal or a fair amount about cancel culture. That drops to 46% for those age 30 to 49. Now, depending on whom you ask, cancel culture is either a necessary correction for past mistakes, or it is a threat to everything we hold near and dear to our hearts. This continues to be a huge conversation when it comes to comedy. You might remember back in 2018, comedian Kevin Hart stepped down from hosting the Oscars when a series of old homophobic tweets resurfaced. More recently, Dave Chappelle's been a big part of this conversation, several others. We are joined tonight by comedians Jeff Dwoskin and Duke and Jason Fylan-Mares. This is an interesting topic to tackle when it comes to comedy, and I'm very interested to get all of your opinions about this. Do you guys think that comedians should be sort of protected from cancel culture?
Well,
or maybe
I'll jump on that.
Yeah.
You know, the nature of comedy, in my mind, is saying the things that people think and are afraid to say, right? So cancel culture in the comedy world is frightening to me, right? And we've seen not only cancellation, but outrage from audience members or, you know, people...
Violence.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's very disheartening, you know, because we do touch on subjects that are touchy. Right, and part of that is reading the room that you're in, right? But I think it's a much broader issue than that. And like I said, if comics are afraid to say what they think, that's threatening to the whole industry. I think.
Jason, do you think we are in that kind of environment where comics are afraid to really say what they think?
I think so. I think I've always considered comedy to be the last line of defense for freedom of speech. So I think when, as Ann mentioned, we feel like that's threatened, sometimes we have a tendency to push back. I always feel like ultimately the audience is the best judge. I have jokes that I think that I don't do that are way better than the ones that I do. Every now and again I pull them out to kind of see how they work. And sometimes they're okay, and sometimes they're not. So I think there is a sense of having to conform a little bit, but that seems contrary to the artistic process. I would actually like to see cancel culture replaced with forgiveness culture. That we can also, hey, somebody said or did something bad, but look at all these good things they did, because nobody is 100% one thing. You know, good people have bad qualities, bad people have good qualities. So I would like people to maybe open their minds a little bit and look at the total picture and not get mad at somebody because a joke. I don't know that you could say that we should be protected from it, but we are sort of the court jesters. We're kind of the ones that are supposed to be touching on these things.
Sure.
Yeah.
Is there an argument to be made that maybe past forms of cancel culture, criticism, pushback, backlash kind of guides comedy and almost serves as sort of a foundational aspect over the years?
I think to your other question, you know, are we protected from what we think? It depends what we think. And I don't think that, I think that goes for comics, I think it goes for anyone. You know, you can look back and be very offended by Mel Brooks movies, but you also have to take things into context. And that doesn't mean necessarily that you forgive something that's unforgivable, that was said. But sometimes things are taken fully out of context. And I don't think it's that cancel culture, the idea of being against somebody saying something that's bad is bad. However, the part that is troubling is the immediate knee-jerk reaction to any of that. Right. Sometimes you just need to take a pause and understand the full story of what's going on to really understand what the next step should be. Immediate outrage followed by immediate judge and jury isn't really helpful for anyone. Right. You know what I mean? You got to give people a second to, oh, maybe they didn't know what they were saying was wrong or bad, right? I mean, sometimes words do shift, right? There was words in a Lizzo song and I think someone else where overseas it meant something else, and and then they change those words, but she had no idea, right?
Yeah.
So, so you got to give people a minute to adjust. Nobody wants to, I think, hurt. I think you shouldn't punch down.
No.
Right? But you know, you have to also, if someone makes a mistake, give them a second to learn.
Sometimes there is, like you mentioned, a knee-jerk reaction. There have been on occasion a lot of criticism against certain comics or certain jokes where the people criticizing them seem to not understand the joke. Have you seen that a number of times? You're nodding your head.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I think we all have it. Nothing specific comes to mind. We also see this sometimes when you're doing a joke and you're setting it up and people laugh, but they laugh at the wrong part, and that's the setup and not the punchline. And already you're like, well, this train is completely off track. So yes, in regards to what you're saying, people can take things wrong, and it is a matter of context and interpretation. Plus, I mean, the idea is a joke. And I do think what Ann nailed it, it's like things are just so serious right now. And some of that is justified, but it's also okay to look at each other and say, here's something funny that we can all laugh about. But you nailed it too. Yeah, you should never like go up there and say, I'm gonna hurt feelings tonight, I'm gonna offend people. That should never be the goal. But sometimes people are going to be offended and they're gonna have some hurt feelings. And that part of it we can't always control, but we never try to do that. That should never be the goal, ever.
Do you think people are able, a majority of people still, to dislike a joke, to disregard a joke and not disregard the comic altogether?
Sure, I think that happens all the time.
Yeah.
You know, I think too, Jeff touched on, you made the mention of Mel Brooks, and I think our society has changed so much. I think about when I was a kid, you know, a TV show like All in the Family, let's say, or Hogan's Heroes.
Right.
You would never see those programs on television today.
No.
Yeah. You know, I'm all about diversity, equity, inclusion, and all of those great things, but as a society, I think we're wound too tight.
Yeah.
Right? And I mean, even a Don Rickles, you know, that kind of insult comedy.
Oh gosh.
That's hard to pull off unless you're really, really good at it.
Yeah.
And you know, so I think times have changed, and maybe we've gone backwards a little bit in that way.
Hopefully that's acting like a slingshot. It's going to push us forward again.
Right,
Hopefully.
Sure.
right.
And that's what I wanted to touch on to wrap this part of the conversation up. Is there any chance that it adds to the evolution of comedy? You do have to think about it differently in this current world we're in. Like you said, you can't just go out there and wing it and see what happens. But does that lead to a different kind of comedy going forward?
I don't know if it leads to a different kind of comedy. I do think, I can speak personally, it's forced me to be more creative sometimes, where something I could say, well, this could get an easy laugh, but they may not like it, they may respond harshly to it. So now let me do something more creative, which kind of gets to the same point, but does so not in a softer manner, but a more creative manner that more people can laugh at. So in that regard, look, the audience is driving this ship. Like, we kind of have to dictate a little bit. We want to be who we are, but at the same time, it's only funny if they're laughing. Right. So in that regard, we have to try to be funny. That's
you have to know your audience.
You have to know your audience, exactly.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, when we come back, we are going to discuss how another major news development is impacting comedy. We're talking ChatGPT, and we will try to find out whether artificial intelligence is funny.
CBS News Detroit, on your block, around the clock in Macomb County. Hi, we're CBS News Detroit. But we don't just cover the news here. We're also here, and everywhere in between. You know, the places you live, work, and play in Southeast Michigan. We're talking less of this, and more of the stories that actually matter to you.
CBS News Detroit, on your block, around the clock.
That's right. Local news just found a home in your neighborhood. We're CBS News Detroit. Live, streaming, and on demand. Nice to meet you. CBS News Detroit. On your block, around the clock in Wayne County. CBS News Detroit, on your block, around the clock in Monroe County.
CBS News Detroit, the stories you care about.
Live, streaming, and on demand. We're on your block, around the clock.
Southeast Michigan news whenever you want it.
We live here. We work here.
From North Branch to Southgate.
East Point to Westland.
Wherever you live, we're here for you.
Making a difference in your neighborhood.
CBS News Detroit, live, streaming, and on demand. Building a better newscast, one story at a time.
CBS News Detroit, on your block, around the clock in Oakland County. It's here, the new CBS News Detroit.
Covering every corner of our community.
With experienced journalists, uncovering the stories that truly matter to you.
Making a difference in your neighborhood.
And weather experts, always looking ahead to prepare you for what's next. Live, streaming, and on demand, with more hours of local news coming soon.
Southeast Michigan news whenever you want it, right here on CBS News Detroit.
Weekdays at 5, 6, and 11, and streaming live.
I did pick up a side hustle during the pandemic. I started working for Shipped. Anybody? Yeah? You're like, wow, that's impressive. If any of my customers are here, not likely, but if you are, I'm going to apologize right now for the smashed avocados. I'm still learning how to stack things in bags. It's a learning curve for me, but the best thing about working for Shipped is the awesome products you find out about that you had no idea existed. Yeah? Like Depends Real Fit for Men. This is the sport athletic short of the Depends line. Because, why should a leaky bladder stop you from a good game of beach volleyball?
Handsome double that you just had there, yeah.
That was funny.
Thank you.
All right, welcome back. We are joined by our comedian guest tonight. You just heard from Jason, and we wanted to talk about some artificial intelligence in this part of this show. You've heard a lot about ChatGPT probably recently, the artificial intelligence program that can do all kinds of amazing things, but it does have some people a little nervous that they might be replaced professionally by AI. So we put ChatGPT's humor to the test, asking it a number of questions from the simple tell us a joke to tips for first-time comedians, and we will start with some of those jokes. We said to ChatGPT, I'm a stand-up comic looking for some good jokes. Give us 3 of them, and in return we got 3 jokes. I will let you all be the judge of whether they are hilarious or not. So we asked, it said, why did the tomato turn red? Because it saw the salad dressing. I don't see a lot of knee slapping going on.
It feels classic though, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It feels timeless.
Yeah, it feels a little bit timeless. Here's another. Why did the Scarecrow win an award? Because he was out standing in the field.
But
That's an old one.
Yeah, thank you. That's what I needed right there.
rim shot, yeah.
Finally, I told my wife she was drawing her eyebrows too high. She looked surprised. It got minor giggles. Okay, so not exactly hilarious. Before we get on to this next part.
Pay for effort.
Exactly. None of you seem to be shaking in your boots about the potential that you might need to find a new career anytime soon.
Those frankly sounded
Jason,
like jokes
maybe
that like a 6-year-old would tell you,
Yeah.
right? Or
Yeah.
a really bad dad joke.
Bad,
Yeah.
yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Now, you guys know what ChatGPT is, I know, and you've heard about it
Yes.
quite a bit before. Could you see any future in which you are using this as a tool to help you come up with material?
You know, I think it would be fun to play with, like to maybe throw out a premise that I have a joke for now and see if it comes up with something better.
Yeah.
And I'm sure there are going to be a lot of hacks out there that are writing their whole set using this.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, the writing's only half of it, right? You still have to perform this.
Yeah.
And that is where the funny happens, right? Because you could take any one of our sets and give it to somebody that's not funny, and it would
That essence is gone.
it would not kill,
Yeah.
as we say. So I think it'll be interesting, but from what we're seeing now, I'm not too concerned
Yeah.
Yeah.
at this point.
How about you, Jason?
I just would be concerned about, how it's going to be regulated and kind of policed. I think that, technology is moving faster than like laws and rules can kind of keep up. So that would be my only concern. I found those jokes to be mildly entertaining. I was thinking like if you did those jokes in front of people, they would be like, people would probably go, "Ah, like that's cute." It wouldn't be like that knee slap up, guys or girls trying. I think that's where we're at. But if it, I don't know if it's going to do like a whole Louis C.K. routine, and I don't know that it's going to do that, but we'll see.
Yeah, we will see. So, Jeff, you have used ChatGPT quite a bit.
I use ChatGPT a million times every day.
For what?
So, well, let me put it in context. So what you set up on there is it was the prompt. That's how you train ChatGPT, and you tell it, who you are, what you want it to be, and then it gives you answers. But where I would say that prompt was incorrect and where people don't have to worry about their jobs being taken away, if you say, ChatGPT, just give me 3 jokes, that's where it doesn't add true value, right? So because now if I had said, if from Jason, going back to earlier, and I say, ChatGPT, you're a clinical therapist, give me some points of view on depression, and it starts to give me some ideas where you can start to mind map, and then Jason can take that to the next level, then you can start to really leverage it. It's people talk about it taking away jobs, but it's not going to take away jobs. It's going to make new jobs for people who can understand how to manage and input the right things into ChatGPT to get the right answers back.
Yeah, that is the key. We've had some AI experts, and they're saying prompting is a whole career path now. You'll probably be able to go to school for this, learning exactly how to tell it what to do. Perfect example of that. You seem like you have a thought on the tip of your tongue.
No, it was great. Everything he said, perfectly said. Thank you, though.
All right, we did want to ask it its thoughts on the comedy scene in Detroit to see what it's gathered from the internet, and here's what it says. It started by saying, as an AI language model, I don't have personal opinions or emotions. But it went on to say, the comedy scene in Detroit seems to be thriving with a supportive community and plenty of opportunities to hone their skills and connect with audiences. Would you guys agree with that? Was it spot on there?
It's nice sentiment, yes.
The Detroit comedy scene is...
The robots have a pulse on us.
Exactly. The bench is so deep. There's so much talent across the board, and so many different people from different backgrounds sharing different stories and different humor. I don't know other comedies seem to compare it to, but a friend of mine was recently talking, Greg Sharp recently said that he thought it kind of reminded him of LA in the late 70s. How just like there's just so many people doing it, and every time you think you've seen everybody, here comes somebody else. And as someone who produces my own shows, I keep a list of all these comedians, and I'm overwhelmed. I want to have more shows so I can put everybody on. It's a beautiful time to be a comedian in Metro Detroit.
Yeah, did that pick up a little bit in the pandemic? Were people?
I think so. I started just before, like a year before the pandemic, so I don't know, but it seems like it. Do you think so, Ann?
I think so. There are a lot of opportunities. There are some really good classes in the market that people can take to try their hand. And I mean, every day we're seeing more and more people join the scene, and of all different sorts, black, white, LGBTQ, Hispanic, all with different points of views and specialty shows. But I think it's a very supportive community. And I see a lot of more senior comics that are looking to help bring up younger comics, which is refreshing. Because, I mean, in any industry, you're going to have people that are petty and aren't rooting for each other. But we constantly hear this phrase, comics supporting comics, right? And you go to any comedy show, and there's a pretty good chance you're going to see another comic in the audience. I see Jason, I see you at shows. When you're not working, you're at somebody else's show.
Always try to be there to support.
Community.
We try to support each other.
I'm also trying to learn. And I can learn from everybody. Something I always like to say, so before I did comedy, I was a college English and public speaking instructor and a Hollywood screenwriter. And I would tell you that if I had a class, my students probably going to hate hearing, former students going to hate hearing this, but if I had a class that ran like 4 months, at the end of that 4 months, I could probably give you the full names of about 30% of the class. But right now, if you slid a piece of paper over to me, I could probably write down 70 to 80 comics, first name, last name, background, something about them, and probably 2 or 3 of their jokes. And that's how invested we all are in it. It is one gigantic family. We are very supportive, and I absolutely love it. I'm so privileged and honored to be a part of it.
Yeah, your students just weren't funny enough.
Exactly, that's their problem. I'll let them deal with it.
Very cool.
Thank you.
I will say one area where we can improve is I want to see more female comics. I want to see more female comics rising to the level of headliner.
Is that in Detroit or across the board?
Across the board, but I witness it here where I would say for every 1 female comic, there are 7 guys out there doing comedy. And, you know, that's discouraging to some women. To me, I like it. It's a numbers game, right? The less of us, the more opportunities I have. But yet, I produce shows as well, and it is a struggle to find female headliners. And so one of the things my company and a lot of us are doing is trying to help women to get to that next level. You know, it's classically been a men's game. You think back in the, you know, there was a time when Joan Rivers and Phyllis Diller, and could you name many other female comics beyond that? And now I think, and it's funny because a large portion of our audiences are women. So, you know, I'm all about lifting those ladies up.
Yeah. Well, I think it's appropriate before we wrap up to end with you. We were supposed to have a soundbite from one of your sets. That didn't work out for us today. What
Well, this is very funny because I sent some clips over and they had some mild language issues perhaps.
Can't do that.
And we weren't able to air them, which is pretty funny because I'm honestly one of the cleanest comics in the market. So the fact that I was the one that didn't have an appropriate clip is kind of funny. Or I could just say, you got to pay money to come and see me.
There you go. And that is a tease.
There you go.
All right, special thanks to Jeff Dwoskin and Duke and Jason Fylan-Mares. You guys, it's been great talking to you.
Thank you.
Thanks for what you're doing with the comedy scene, and we just encourage everyone to get out there and check it out.
Thank
when
you
we
so much.
return, we're going to take another look at some of the biggest stories from across the country.